AAA gaming is slowly dying, and I believe that game studios are starting to try and replicate what indie game studios are doing right now. It might seem like a pretty crazy topic, because how is a studio with 1,000 developers making games that are not doing as well as studios with 10 developers, 1 developer, 30 developers? I mean, look at Expedition 33. Now, it is in the loosest term an indie game, but it only has 30 developers, compared to some studios which have thousands or hundreds that have won other Game of the Year awards. Let's look at the Game of the Year awards. Let's go for 2022. Elden Ring, From Software. Right? Around 300-ish staff in From Software. Now let's look at 2025. Lair Obscure Expedition 33, which is an indie sort of AA game made by Sandfall Interactive, which has around 30 staff in it, and it won all 5 major Game of the Year awards. And it is pretty insane that a studio with only 30 staff. Now, mind you, I'm pretty sure that Expedition 33 had a bit of funding, which isn't typical for a lot of indie startup companies or startup developers. But the fact is, it is an indie game made by not that many people. You know, let's look at Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley was made by 1 developer, and it sold 30 million copies over its lifetime. It's one of the best-selling games ever made. Helldivers 2 has had around 100 staff. Now that's definitely leaning out of the, the indie. I mean, there's 100 people working on it, but it is a mid-sized indie studio who made it, which was Arrowhead, and it didn't really have much marketing. But look at the game now; it has a lot of people playing it. Another example is Palworld. Palworld sold 8 million copies in its first week, which outpaces a lot of AAA releases in 2024. And it didn't even have a traditional marketing budget; it was quite low. And the biggest thing is Balatro. Balatro was nominated for Game of the Year, and it was one of the most talked about games. It was massive. I mean, I personally haven't played it myself. It doesn't seem like my type of game, but it was made by a single developer and it got that much buzz. I mean, think about that. Think about how that looks to a company. I mean, if I was a company and I was sat there like, oh, I've got thousands of staff working on games, but that thousands of staff are getting outsold by a singular developer, that starts to sort of make the companies wonder, well, why are we spending all of this money on thousands of staff members when there is just a single developer who can do it? Or there is just something like artificial intelligence which is coming in. AAA gaming as a whole, the budget for AAA games is going up. In 2010, the budget average was around 50 million. Now, if we look at the data for 2024-ish, 5-ish, it's over 200 million, almost hitting 250 million. And a lot of those games that people are spending hundreds of millions on are failing. Look at Concord. I mean, that game shut down just 2 weeks after launch. I mean, that did not last at all. 100 million? Skull and Bones, Ubisoft. I mean, it's Ubisoft, so what do you expect? But it had over $200 million for a budget and nearly a decade of development over multiple different reboots of the game. And it barely even attracted 1 million players despite an 8-hour free trial. Then you have Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. I mean, that was just a bit of a mess. I thought it looked pretty interesting. I mean, some of the cutscenes were really cool. I don't like how they killed off certain characters or they did certain things, not to spoil. But if you played the game, you know what I mean. But it was a bit disappointing. It ended up being discounted pretty quick. And whilst AAA budgets are rising, like we've said, some titles approaching $1 billion. I mean, that would mean they would require 10 million copies sold just to break even. And a lot of companies aren't just going to do that. No matter how good the game is, the companies aren't going to sit there and go, I'm going to spend $1 billion, upwards of $1 billion on a game that has to sell amazingly, which means that only safe IPs are being greenlit. I mean, the AAA space is pretty stagnant. I don't often see a AAA game that isn't a franchise I've already heard about or a franchise that other people have heard about and I'm just hearing about it now. It's a massive franchise. And the fact is that these big companies are laying off workers to save on these costs. And it's making the space very, very bad. I'm pretty sure the stat is about 1 in 3, developers were being laid off in 2025. If we look at Microsoft, they reported an $18 billion profit the same quarter that it laid off thousands of its gaming workers. And then EA did the same stuff and made about $800 million in profit gutting the studios. These layoffs aren't about these companies surviving. You think Microsoft needs to cut out people to survive? No, it's about getting that little bit of extra money, which is what really matters for a lot of companies. I mean, the decline in genuine sold and quality of games is pretty insane. I mean, if you look at Pokemon games, right? The Pokemon games could be amazing, right? They could look great, they could do this, that, and the other. But if you look at some of the newer Pokemon games that came out, they just don't look as good. I mean, they're not as appealing as they definitely could be with the budget they should have, but it's not good enough. Pokemon they don't need to make the games look amazing because they already have the established IP. That means people are going to buy into them no matter how the game looks. They could make Pokemon back to just being pixels. They can make Pokemon just really, really small budget, whatever. It's Pokemon. People are still going to buy it, especially if there's new mons in it. People are still going to buy into Pokemon. Especially now with the card, phase that is going on. There's getting a lot of new people into Pokemon. And a lot of, workers in AAA games are being underpaid as well. And a lot of these talents that could be making these crazy indie projects aren't making them. But let's look at 2025, right? 75% of the top 20 highest rated games on Metacritic were made by indie studios. Nearly double what they used to be in 2016. The same year, which is when Expedition 33 won the Game of the Year, it swept. I mean, 2025 was just an indie year. I mean, typically the term used as friend slop, but indie games recently have just been making waves. I mean, you look at Lethal Company, you look at Expedition 33, I mean, even Hollow Knight. Like, Hollow Knight, that game is massive. I mean, there are so many diehard Hollow Knight fans. They waited years for that game. So the problem really is how are these gaming companies really looking at profitability of games? They're going to look at indie games, with 30 people working on them and go, oh yeah, I'm going to keep having thousands and thousands of workers that aren't making me the same amount of a profit margin that these guys are. I mean, if companies could just have one guy make an indie game, the equivalent to an indie games, and just keep afloat, they would. I mean, why would they not? Which is why so many people are getting laid off, because these indie studios are blowing up, and these indie games are blowing up way quicker than AAA is. But the one thing is to notice about indie games is they're not sustainable to start up. I mean, a lot of indie studios are notably struggling due to, how the gaming landscape is, but you get a lot of successes. I mean, tell me, what are the last 10 games that you've seen that are popular? How many of them are indie? I can't remember the last time I played a new game that was made by a big company, other than maybe Resident Evil. One of the reasons being is that they are extremely expensive. I mean, could I buy them? Yeah, but there are so many games that are coming out that are now £79, 79, these massive prices, and these indie games, which a lot of people end up getting a lot of hours out of, they're 10 quid. They're, the friend slop games are always like 5 quid, 7 quid. They're really low price for what you're getting, how much bang for your buck you're getting. So when companies are looking at this, people are spending more time on the game and it's costing way less to make and it's making way more money. But like I said a couple times in this video, why would they keep hiring thousands of people? And that's why people are getting laid off. And that's where AAA gaming is beginning to slip. I mean, indie gaming is just rising and rising and rising as AAA gaming is struggling to keep on its own 2 feet as these indie games rise. It'll be interesting to see how the landscape goes for the next few years, but as far as I see it right now, AAA gaming is sort of dying. There are only going to be a few games that keep it afloat. All these big companies, they're just going to keep laying people off as technology grows. And if it's not for indie games that they're laying people off for, it's going to be artificial intelligence. But that's a story for another time. What do you think about this situation? What do you think about indie games? Do you think that indie games will continue to grow, or do you think they're going to hit their peak very soon? Sort of like AAA games seem to have done, where they're spending too much money on the games instead of, the quality. They're going, oh, let's make this game look good instead of make this game play really good. I mean, I think the golden spot realistically was the 2018, 2019 sort of period where those crazy games were coming out, around that time. I remember being just so many good games that were really, they felt like they were ahead of their time. I mean, they may not have had the most realistic graphics, but that's not all that matters. Anyway, I'll see you next time.